I started hustling when I was a kid. I can't tell you about that business because it was actually illegal. FBI, open up! So I asked him, why do you want to buy the business? The reason we really want to buy your business. He said, we want to go beyond egg. What's brilliant about this that you can't get anywhere. You can't get into dairy. There's lots of fantastic things about this. I mean, there's a whole coconut in this pot. You know, that's really good. And it's full of electrolytes and all sorts of good things, vitamins and so on.
I have an entire pot for breakfast every day.
Although it's high in fat, it kind of satiates you, so you don't then junk up on the crisps and so on. So lots of great things about this. And Zoe actually got this into Wimbledon as the official cream for Wimbledon.
Yeah.
This is comfort food done brilliantly.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I think you've got to be quite good at that because it's very easy to say, you know, the bar is so high for success that you've got to get everything right. Cool food isn't cheap and cheap food isn't cool.
Yeah.
You know, you want to go for something that's cool.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to a special sponsor, Sam Lawrence Recruitment. We all know that finding the right people or the right job can feel really overwhelming, and that's exactly where Sam comes in. He really just gets it. It's not just about ticking boxes, it's about connecting the right people with the right opportunities. He takes the time to understand you and exactly what you're looking for, whether you're building a team or taking that next career leap. So definitely get in touch. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. At Getting to Grow, I believe that growth starts with connection. And that's where our sponsor, We Are All Marketing, comes in. I'm super excited to be partnering with Vic and the team over at We Are All Marketing. They're not just a marketing agency, they're storytellers, strategists, and your biggest advocates. Whether you're building a brand, launching a product, or strengthening your digital presence, We Are All Marketing helps you turn ideas into impact. With a personalized, results-driven approach, they ensure your vision reaches the right audience in the right way. Ready to grow your business? Visit weareallmarketing.com and see how they can help you thrive. Getting to Grow is also brought to you by the Coconut Collab. And full disclosure, as I'm sure most of you are aware, I work there, so I know how much love goes into everything that we make. We're all about creating delicious, dairy-free, plant-based treats that do not compromise on taste. From our creamy yogurts to our indulgent desserts, everything's made with coconuts and a whole lot of care. If you're looking for something naturally good but seriously tasty, and my favourite is just our natural coconut yogurt, I have it most mornings with granola and lots of honey. Trust me, you're going to absolutely love it. So, as I said, thank you all so much for coming to a really special live recording of Getting to Grow. Getting to Grow is one of the UK's leading podcasts in food and drink, hosted by myself, the founder and creator of it, and I've interviewed over 50 founders to date with the likes of Grenade, Trip, and most excitingly, and this evening, Coconut Collab Goo, and also Spooners. This is a super exciting one for me this evening, and a really special one because James is technically my boss. This is my side hustle, and then as my day job, I work as head of business development for the Coconut Collaborative. So James has very, very kindly joined me this evening to speak to all of you guys tonight at the Pavilion Club. So please give it a round of applause for James Averdieck.
Thanks, Zoe. It is on the basis that this never becomes too bigger part of your career.
Okay, yeah. No, don't worry, I've got no plan.
I'm joking.
I love my job.
I wish you all the new Joe Rogan is Zoe Fox.
I hope. So James, let's start right at the beginning. What was your inspiration to start, and did you always want to create something for yourself?
I thought you might ask that. Well, I'm of the belief that people are kind of born as entrepreneurs. And I say entrepreneurs, but it is a word that never used to be used in the 20th century. It's a 21st century word. So if my dad, I'm thinking back to when I was a kid, you know, if I said, Dad, I really want to be an entrepreneur, he'd kind of look at me, what are you talking about? You know, I've never heard, you know. But definitely what's always been on in me is, what am I going to do next? What's the next thing? And I've always had, and I think a lot of kind of business people have this a kind of curious mind as to, what can I do that would be interesting and cool and so on. So I started actually doing my own hustles, and I mean Zoe is one of the best hustlers around, so respect. But I started hustling when I was a kid, when I was at school, and I can't tell you about that business because it was actually illegal. But it didn't involve magazines. I'm not going to say any more. And then my second business was I basically sold shoes, because I grew up in Northamptonshire, which used to be a big shoe manufacturing place. And I used to go around city dealing rooms in London and basically take people's shoe sizes. Everyone loves being served, and I'd kind of, I'd basically charm people. And then I'd go up to the factory in Northampton and basically deliver the shoes the next day. And this was a really good business, when I was at university. And I remember thinking, I'm not sure I want to give this up. I don't want a proper job, because in those days, everyone said, well, you've got to become an accountant. If you want to go into business, you've got to be an accountant. My dad used to say, you've got to be an accountant. Bloody, I hated the idea of becoming an accountant. What any accountants in the room, by the way?
I know there's one at the back there.
Okay, sorry to insult you. I mean,
actually, there's a few accountants in the room.
But you've got to have, it's like lawyers as well, maybe a few more lawyers in the room. But I do not have the wiring to be an accountant or a lawyer. So anyway, it's quite tempting to carry on with this kind of hustle, selling shoes or whatever. But I then got a proper job. And I kind of felt that, my parents had invested a lot in my education and stuff like that. So I thought, I better do something conventional and boring. And I started as a management consultant, weirdly enough, because I knew nothing about business apart from my own hustles. But it was a good job. It was in Berkeley Square. I've never worked in such a good... It's always been downhill on the address front ever since. I was in Berkeley Square House, and I worked for this American company. And actually, it was a great job. They used to fly me around the world and met some very interesting people and so on. Bloody hard work. And then I got into the food industry. Terrible job. Absolutely hated it. I worked for Safeway. I don't know if you remember Safeway. Anything you want from a store and a little bit more.
Oh.
That was the strap line.
Never forgot the tagline.
Absolutely hated it. I hate kind of bureaucracies. I hate kind of having to wear a white shirt and a tie and look a particular way. I remember my boss once said to me, he said, he was a right idiot, this guy. And he said, James, I really want you to kind of, you've got to fit in more into this business. And the way you're going to fit in more is you're going to shave, because you always leave a bit here. You're going to shave all the way down, you're going to look so clean cut. And I just thought, what a knob. I don't want this. I hate the kind of brown nosing in these big companies. I basically hate big companies. But anyway, I carried on working for it because it was quite difficult to get a job in those days. It was a bad recession. And then I got into a job I really enjoyed, which was sales, which I know you're very good at too. And I started selling dairy products, yoghurts and desserts. And that's why I'm, doing what I do, because that was my apprenticeship. I worked for St. Ivel, which not many people have heard of now, but St. Ivel used to be quite a big, in fact, it was the largest dairy company in the UK. And I launched Cadbury's desserts. I don't know, they're still around today, those little kind of desserts.
Pots of joy.
Pots of joy, exactly. Anyway, in a long roundabout answer your question, I I kind of always wanted to do something of my own, but I never, quite. It didn't quite kind of all come together until I was 35, and then I thought, right, got to do something. Can't carry on because I'm not going to become the MD of this company. So I do want to, I want to enjoy my life and I want to have an adventure. And I also want to make a bit of money as well. But to be honest, it was more an adventure rather than the money making that was the excitement for me.
And this is obviously your first venture, which is Goo, which I'm sure has everybody in this room had a Goo pudding. Put your hands up if you've had, yeah, precisely. You created such a love brand. I mean, Goo resonates with Friday nights in, you've cooked dinner, you want something delicious, and it's iconic glass ramekin, which you've already tucked into one of your old products there and said that it's still good. So,
still good.
I mean, you sold Goo for 35 million, and I was doing some research last night, and it was valued recently at over 200.
Right.
What?
Thanks, Zoe.
Sorry, my point there was basically that, wow, like an amazing brand. Yeah. So tell the audience, like, the journey of Goo. What, how did Goo come about?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first thing to say is that it looks very slick. There it is. Goo hasn't changed that much. It's still exactly the same, black packaging, the logo and stuff.
I actually remember when I first joined Coconut Collaborative in our office in Great Peter Street, and there's a picture of you and Phoebe in the daily, it's in the Daily
in
Mail.
the Times, yeah.
And Phoebe, you've got chocolate all over your face, and it's like James Averdieck launches Goo, and it's like the pots, and I so remember that. Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is with all businesses, especially small ones, is that they are chaotic at the start. So even though it looks slick and professional and you kind of read about Goo, whatever it's worth, it's not worth that much, by the way, but and all of these brands are the same. If you actually, lift the bonnet and look what's going on inside, it's pretty chaotic. And that's the way it should be. And actually, if you go back and read about Haagen-Dazs and Cadbury's in the day or whatever, it's exactly the same. You've got some mad guy or woman basically with some idea and a passion and a driving force. And I think made tons of mistakes. I mean, so many kind of things almost went wrong. And like everything, we are here for a reason. We just happened to do things in a sequential way and it just worked out or didn't, whatever. Same with Goo.
You were living in Belgium at the time.
No, I wasn't. I was living in Belgium when I thought of Goo.
Okay, that was it.
But then I didn't do anything with it. For about 2 years. So and the thing that made me do something was I was skiing, and I remember it very vividly. I was skiing with this guy. I was selling margarine at the time in yogurt, and he was called Tony, a very successful guy. My elder brother is very successful, and he's got lots of very successful friends. And this guy owns a big hedge fund, and he was kind of, I quite liked him, but he was slightly intimidating. And I remember being on a chairlift with him, and the question I used to dread getting was, what do you do for a living? It's like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to, I can't say I sell margarine.
I sell yogurt.
Yes, you do, but yes, fair point. But you sell cool yogurt.
I sell very cool yogurt.
You sell very cool yogurt.
I sell very cool yogurt. This yogurt.
And the stuff I was selling was deeply uncool. Anyway, so I said, you know what, Tony? I have a desserts business, and I've just started it, and it's beautiful kind of chocolate desserts. You won't have seen them yet, but they're really good, and they're just going into store now. and they hadn't even, I hadn't done anything, literally.
You're
this
manifesting.
was just an idea. I was manifesting, exactly, that's the word. So anyway, on the back of that, I thought, I've got to actually do something, because the first rule of entrepreneurship is take some action. Action is the key. Anyway, about a year later, it was on the shelf, and there's some kind of funny moments in Goo. I mean, Goo wasn't called Goo at the start. It was called the Belgian Chocolate Company, which is a really bad name. And I remember going to see this lovely guy who I still work with called Perry in Chelsea. So Goo is actually invented in Chelsea. And he said, yes, this name reminds me of my granny who smells of pee. And I thought, oh God, that's not good at all. Okay, let's not call it Goo. Let's not call it Belgian Choc or whatever. And anyway, so he then phoned me up and said, come into my office. And about a week later, and I went in, and there was this picture of this brand Goo on the screen, and it was literally very slick like this. And he said, I've been doing a tour of desserts all over the world, and I've come across this brand, and they're doing exactly what you want, what you're talking about, but they've beaten you to it, Jim. So what's going on? You told me there was nothing like this. So anyway, I kind of saw this brand. I thought, fuck, that's good. Yeah, God, that's really good. That's exactly what I want. Anyway, he started smiling. He said, no, it's all yours. I've invented it for you. That is the way to sell a brand, by the way. So rather than give a list of brand names or whatever, picture it so you can't say no. Because envy is a key part of the business process, as we all know.
Goo's branding it's really bold, it's distinctive, it screams luxury. But when you look at Goo's distribution, it's all over, it's scaled and it's huge. How did you manage kind of keeping that luxury brand feel while scaling?
I wouldn't say it was particularly premeditated. But definitely every business, and certainly the three brands that I've got my name behind, kind of Goo, Coconut Collab, and recently Spooners. The one thing I've learned is that as soon as you start doing something, the Americans call it stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. So as soon as you start either trying to go super up market or super down market, it usually doesn't work. So the key thing is to find something, to launch something that a few, that's a kind of trend that's before it's a trend, as it were. You launch a niche, and I've always been into niches. So coconut yogurt was a complete niche when I launched it. No one was doing it. Goo was very niche. Everyone, there were no desserts like it. Cookie dough is another niche which is about to explode. It is exploding as we speak. So find a niche and then basically get people talking about it, and then gradually the kind of whether it's on digital or the old-fashioned jungle telegraph, people talking about it starts to kind of build momentum. Yeah.
And as I said earlier, Goo was sold for 35 million when you sold it.
Yeah.
How was that transition from founder to seller? How did you find exiting the business? Did you have to stay in for a bit to kind of keep the momentum going and then leave?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing to say is it's a very, it's a great thing to, kind of certainly looking from the outside, to start a business, to build it up, and then for someone to want to buy it for a lot of money is, obviously very flattering and something that a lot of us dream of. the actual process of selling your company is fairly, it's not really my jam. So, and I've kind of been involved with investors and bankers and lawyers and stuff. And it's quite a, yeah, I mean, it really takes it out of you. It's a big thing. And obviously at the same time, you're looking at numbers and you're negotiating and everything else. And then you've got all of your team and you've got all the kind of, the things that you can't put a number to, like the culture of a business and the history and your own feelings about it. And so, I mean, look, on one sense, it was fantastic. And I think I had a partner who wanted to sell. I didn't actually want to sell. He wanted to sell. And these things kind of gained momentum in a way. And anyway, it didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to be. So I sold to a company called Noble Foods, who I don't know if you've heard of, but they're a big egg business.
The happy egg.
They're big in egg.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to this guy who was an unbelievable kind of super charming when he wanted something. As soon as he doesn't need you anymore, honestly, he drops you like a stone. I really hate him now. Not that I've seen him for 15 years, but I wouldn't talk to him if I did. And he's not in the room. He's in Monaco. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, he was the one who sold for 150. But what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So I asked him, why do you want to buy the business? Or, it came up. He said, the reason we really want to buy your business is, and I remember he used these words. He said, we want to go beyond egg. I thought, what a strange thing to say. So, can you imagine saying to your team, we've sold the business, and the reason they want to buy it is they want to go beyond egg.
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay.
Anyway, I must admit, I didn't really. Again, I was kind of, as I say, very fortunate position to sell your business. But at the same time, having been a total maverick for the previous 6 years, I suddenly had to start kind of doing monthly forecasts and kind of, being careful about what I said and fitting in with someone that I didn't really like. So I actually, to be honest, I didn't fit in at all. I started feeling like a stranger in my own house. So, yeah, I left. I left early because they said, well, we want you to stay with us and grow make the business huge. And I said, okay, fine, I'll stay for a bit. And then they employed a managing director. And I said, okay, well, so what am I going to do? And, you're going to grow the business in Europe and the USA. So I went I like going to America. It's a great place. It's a great place to have fun. It's not actually a great place to do business, by the way. It's certainly if you're in the food business, it's an absolute graveyard. But anyway, I went there and I came back, having had a few good trips. I said, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I knew it wouldn't work. And they said, okay, well, try other places. So, we did Germany and we were already in France and stuff. But anyway, I realized that I was just becoming a kind of sales exec for these guys, which is fine. It's a good job, but it wasn't kind of what I wanted to do at that point. So I then left.
I work with you obviously a lot in the office, and you are such an ideas guy. I can't imagine you working underneath someone that wanted to change what you created a little bit. It would have been really tough for you to go to mold into something that is so not you. Yes. You're all about breaking the mold. You're all about doing things differently. So to have red tape, I think would have been. It's not a bit of you, Jim.
No. Thank you. I totally agree. It's not my thing.
If you could go back to the early days of Goo, What's one thing you might have done differently?
Oh, yeah, good question. I mean, actually, goo, I have to say it. I always think, whenever you hear politicians are answering questions, I love the way they change the subject. And I'm going to change the subject at this point. Because I'm going to say, I'm going to apply the same question to Coconut Collab. And because goo was a great business, and I was very lucky, and I can't think of many things that went wrong, apart from we had some pretty scary times, but I don't need to talk about those. But actually, Coconut Collab is probably more interesting for that question, because also a lovely business, fantastic, and similar thing, a nice niche that suddenly exploded, and everyone wanted to become more kind of plant-based and coconutty and stuff. So it was kind of lots of things colliding to, in our favour. But stupidly, then I took it to America. And the reason we did that is because, I like going to America, and although it wasn't the right place for a desserts business, I thought it could work with yogurt and blah, blah, blah. And also, got into some conversations with people who said, yeah, your product's fantastic, and this would go absolutely brilliantly in America. And actually, that wasn't a good thing for us. So that was, if I could change one thing in my career, and to be honest, I wouldn't change that much. I've enjoyed it immensely. But the one thing I would change, because I'd be a lot richer, is if I hadn't gone to America. So save America for holidays, having fun,
Not for business.
watching Yellowstone.
Yeah.
But not for business, in my experience. But if you're in other businesses, it's great. Food business is really difficult. Yeah.
Oh, we did have a nice time at San Fran Fancy Food Show, though.
We did.
That was good fun.
Yes, that was good fun. Yeah, you're right.
This leads me very nicely onto Coconut Collaborative, which is where my heart is as my role. I love it. And Coconut Collaborative, for anybody that doesn't know, is the leading dairy-free coconut yogurt in the United Kingdom. And we also have the best-selling dairy-free dessert as well. So these are our choc pots, held very nicely by my model, James. And then we also have, the coconut yogurt. It's won countless awards. It's been listed in the fastest 50 growing companies in the UK, and its got listings with all the major UK supermarkets. Now, Jim, most people, after selling their business for 35 mil, and I like to just drop that in there to kind of, ambiance, but would probably put their feet up and go, yeah, that's all right. I'm chill now. I might have a few holidays. I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
But not for you. You wanted to get straight back into it, and, well, not straight back into it, but you thought of another business. What made you want to start again from scratch?
Okay, well, look, a bit of clarification. Firstly, I didn't trouser 35 million, unfortunately. So if I had, I probably wouldn't have, been so keen to get back into the saddle.
True.
The second thing is it took quite a long time between when I left Goo to when I started the next one. And I actually did I'm quite a kind of, I like a hustle. I really like hustling. I like an adventure. I'm not really good at going to the gym every day, as you can see. So
Peloton, though.
I got a bit, No, I enjoy it, but you hear about people who retire and then, become, I always like, a lot of people who do this become detached, or it kind of goes to their heads, or they become, whatever, they think they can do anything. I basically did some TV presenting, a program that you wouldn't probably have seen called Cooks to Market, which was on Sky. And it was basically about, it was a kind of dragon's den. That was the idea for people who wanted to start a food business. And I had a kind of fellow co-presenter called Gizzy Erskine, who's a kind of food chef. We had some fun. And we filmed 20 episodes. And we basically we started in a kind of market like Covent Garden or whatever. And it was about people, who wanted to go from a startup kitchen business to supermarkets. And part of it was fun, but actually I remember the guy on the camera always said, the producer said, "Oh, Jim, you're being far too nice to these people. What really works is jeopardy. We need a bit of aggro. So we want you to really disagree with Gizzy and start kind of throwing your weight around. Okay, I'll try that." So, a few takes later, yeah, Gizzy, you're talking out of your ass, kind of, it's not going to work. Or that makes much better TV.
Yes.
And we all know it because it's kind of more interesting. But it wasn't really my bag. And I remember the guy said to me, and I said, "You know what, it's not really my bag, this." And he said, "Jim," he said, "I can't tell you how many people would kill for the opportunity of doing what you're doing, doing a TV presenting." I said, "Yeah, I get that." But it wasn't for me. And anyway, I started kind of looking around and everything else, and about the same time, actually, it's a bit sad, and poor Phoebe's in the room, but my marriage kind of broke down for whatever reason, and which I'm not going to go into, so I needed another kind of hustle, or new kind of reason, purpose. Purpose is the word, but basically, I knew the yogurt market. We talked about that already, but I knew how big the yogurt market is because we all eat it. Most of us eat it quite regularly. And then I just started thinking, how can I find what's my way into this? And then I tasted this ice cream that was made of coconut milk. And I thought, God, that tastes really good. But actually, I've never had a non-dairy thing that tastes good. Non-dairy equals tastes like rubbish. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. Maybe, and I started kind of, my mind started working overdrive. Maybe this could be the next big thing. And I actually ended up buying this tiny business called Besant and Drury, run by a couple of nice guys from Essex, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And we started playing around with yogurt from coconut milk. And it took ages to get it right. There was one other company doing it called Koyo. But I knew that they were, and it was run by this, and she's still running it actually. She's quite, she used to be a policewoman. And I don't think she was particularly experienced in business. And I thought, I can see she's charging too much and the product is too niche. And I want to make this mainstream. I want to find some way of bringing this to democratizing coconut yogurt, whatever you call it. So anyway, long way around, but we got there in the end. We got a good product. It's very difficult to make. Finally found a factory that could make it. And actually going back to what I was saying earlier, it's exactly the same with goo. I didn't know how to make, when we first presented goo to the supermarkets, I had this very good chef who had worked at Mosman's, which is a nice restaurant in London, and she was Australian, called Katrina. And basically, goo was all of their recipes, all of their kind of desserts, and they were tasted awesome, like goo does. But we had no idea how to scale it up. Even when I'd got the listing in Sainsbury and Waitrose, it's like 3 weeks before, we suddenly thought, Jesus, we've actually got to make,
Quite a lot.
quite a lot of these, and this is difficult. We hadn't worked it out because they kept on all sorts of problems. They kept on kind of the layers kind of combined, and the souffle didn't rise, and oh god. But actually, this is the kind of, I suppose, the frightening but exciting thing about having your own business is that you have to solve these problems on the hoof. You've got no choice. And actually a deadline really sharpens the mind in terms of solving the problems. We had exactly the same problem with the coconut collab. So we found that they went mouldy after about 7 days, and I couldn't work out what was going on. And then we suddenly realized we need to make it in a lot more kind of, called it an aseptic environment, so any air that gets to the yogurt will start producing yeast, and it was difficult, but it's good. Difficult stuff is good because it's difficult for everyone. So that's always been my thing. If it's easy, then it's like everyone will do it. Anyway, so going back to the coconut collab, our timing, and same with goo, and I think the same with spooners. I think you've got to get the timing right. You've just got to get into a market early before it pops, and you've got to be part of the popping process. You kind of, and if you look at a lot of brands that have worked, it's all quite similar. They kind of, they pioneer, but they don't just pioneer and do nothing about it and it stays in Whole Foods. They basically work out a way that it can be big and go everywhere, because the Whole Foods market in this country is tiny. The independent market in this country is tiny. You can't build a business around it. We all know that. You've got to basically be selling to Tesco, Waitrose, Sainsbury's, everyone, and then you can make a crust in the food business. I going back to my big thing is get into a market early with something cool, and feel that it's kind of on the turn, and then do a brilliant job. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy at all. It how difficult it is, but that seems to work as a playbook.
And goo is indulgent. It's delicious. It's a treat. Was it then different selling a plant-based yogurt? Did you have to get your head around, obviously, a totally new category? Your whole sell is different. You're
Yes.
selling health. You're selling, basically don't have goo at the moment. Maybe we'll have it later. But
That's right.
today we're having coconut collaborative yogurt, and it's
Yes.
delicious and it's healthy for you, and you can have it every day. You can't really have a goo every day. I'm sure some people do, but
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend. So how was that different? Like your whole kind of head approach, did that all change?
Yes, great question. Look, it's much easier to sell a product when it's instinctive. In other words, when you are the consumer. And I was the goo consumer. So I basically launched stuff that I really liked myself. And I thought, everyone else will like it because I like it. But with coconut yogurt, it was a bit different because I'm not a yoga bunny. It started off as very much a kind of yoga, or that was I suppose that was the tribe, the kind of yoga bunnies. And then it kind of evolved from there. So it is more difficult to get into that. But and then I came full circle and back to the sugary stuff.
Yes, which we'll get on to. But before we get on to the new venture, which I know you're dying to talk about.
Yes, of course, yeah.
If you could pair coconut yogurt with any food from any cuisine in the world, what would you have it with?
Oh, well, so I keep on saying this to everyone in the office. I think a lot of people use this for curry.
Yeah.
And for Asian food. And actually, we spend a lot of time thinking about being an alternative to dairy or whatever. But I think, and increasingly, this is the kind of way we're moving, is the glory of the coconut. And why, what's brilliant about this that you can't get anywhere. You can't get into dairy. And there's lots of fantastic things about this. I mean, there's a whole coconut in this pot. Did you know that? You know, that's really good. And it's full of electrolytes and all sorts of good things, vitamins and so on.
I have an entire pot for breakfast every day.
Yeah.
And the colleagues in the office can vouch for that because they see me and they go, how do you have a whole pot? But yeah, love it.
And the other thing that's great about it is that it kind of, it's a slow release. So you can have it and then you can kind of, although it's high in fat, it kind of satiates you. So you don't then junk up on the crisps and so on. So lots of great things about this. I love it in curry. There was a double cream
We've
pot.
got the double cream.
Oh, someone's taken it back.
No.
But
The double cream is somewhere. There's a bag of goodies.
That's
but
my-
whoever
this is
asks
my-
the best question, by the way, you win the entire range. So get your thinking
okay,
caps on.
this is my
This is
favourite
delicious. This is the double cream.
This is amazing. And Zoe actually got this into Wimbledon as the official cream for Wimbledon
Yeah.
2 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Brilliant. And it really worked very well. And it's delicious. It whips.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
Heat staple.
It's brilliant. So I'm still, it's been 10 years since I started the Coconut Collab. And I love this business. You know, in some ways, people call me the goo guy because I started goo, but actually I've spent more of my life doing this. There's more of a connection with me with this. Also, I don't know about you, but I always think about the future. I don't tend to go back to the past that much. So goo for me now, I see it on the shelf and I think it's a competitor. And it's like, right, how can I nick some space from these fuckers?
I know, I'm constantly up against them.
You know, I've had a goo for the first time. Honestly, I haven't had a goo for about a year. I see it the whole time because I'm always in the supermarkets, but I haven't tasted it. It's good. It is good. But I'm way more interested in this now.
Okay, so before we get on to this, which I know dying to talk about it,
Yeah.
I'm getting my phone up for something important because James was my second guest on the podcast when I started it 4 years ago.
Yes.
And you said something, Jim, which I'm going to play loud from the podcast, the first one, that you said, okay? Hopefully this will work.
Like to go into or easy coming?
Yeah. So I'm not going to. Well, I'm not going to start any new businesses.
So I don't know if you remember that, but you said in April 2021,
Yes.
I'm in the autumn of my career and I will not be starting any new businesses.
Right.
So, now on to your latest
Yes.
business,
Okay.
Spooners,
Yes.
which you are creating alongside Coconut Collaborative. And Spooners is a new and exciting dessert brand, which you all have in your goodie bags. So make sure to give it a try. It's absolutely delicious. It's like a childhood dream. It's nostalgic. It's so yummy and it's super indulgent. And it is now a competitor to Goo. So, why cookie dough? What was your inspiration behind it? And are you about to bring cookie dough to the masses?
Great questions. And it's funny, you yes. I do change my mind quite a lot, by the way. You've probably noticed. Anyone who's worked with me knows that I change my mind. Well, one of the good things that came out of America was that I kind of got to know cookie dough. I could see that cookie dough was quite a big thing. And why do I think it's going to be huge? Look, I don't know if it's going to be huge. I hope it's going to be huge. But when I first started Goo, I didn't know it was going to be huge either. So I don't think that's necessarily a motivator for doing it. You hope that it's going to develop into something. No one knows. And if you focus too much on the numbers, you miss out on getting it right. And one thing that I have learnt from having, different businesses is that entrepreneurs do focus on the product really well. There's this obsession with getting the product right rather than necessarily the marketing right or the all the business plan right. Who knows what the business plan is going to be like? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one knows. Anybody can do a spreadsheet and basically say, oh, let's just apply a 1.25 a year and blah blah blah, and it looks really exciting. And you know what? Our margin's going to increase from 8% to 15%. It's for the birds, honestly. What you've got to do is you basically, yes, you think about these things. So you want to be selling a product for more than you buy it for. And in the food industry, roughly, you've got to make at least 30%. That's as a direction. If you can make it 30% over in a reasonable period of time, and you can scale the business, you can start making money. I mean, that's the basic. But don't spend too much time on that, because you've got to focus on something that people love and get people talking about it and be slightly obsessed by it, and then it's got a chance of working. It doesn't always work, but it's got a better chance of working. I remember we shared an office, and you'll remember this, Zoe, with Julian Metcalf. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
So Julian is the founder of Pret and Itsu. He's not an easy guy, I have to say it. He's quite charming, but he's not easy. But he's brilliant at one thing. He's absolutely brilliant on product, and his obsession on the detail of the products. If you think about Itsu, the products are really good there.
It was really good when we had the black card as well, underneath the office. Do you remember we got 50% off because we were in that?
Oh, yeah, you did,
It tasted really good
yes,
then.
yeah, we used to. That was the reason why people came to work for me, because they basically got half price Itsu.
Yeah.
That was the main. Oh, do you really? Okay, yeah, I'm joining.
Yeah, I'll have it. I'm in.
I'm in. Anyway, yeah. So I do think that getting the product right. So yeah, we got some fantastic. This is really good. This is the chocolate chip cookie dough.
I have some spoons here if anybody wants to get involved right now. I know this lady was complaining earlier to me that there wasn't.
Oh, right.
Here we go.
Good. Yes.
I know, there we go. If anybody else, we can have some live taste testing.
And look. I mean, in terms of the kind of elevator pitch on this, comfort food in this day and age is something that's really important to keep our spirits up. This is comfort food done brilliantly.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
It's the perfect comfort food. And it's kind of in this ice cream packaging, which kind of, is a bit different because most desserts sell in plastic pots. And it's got this kind of, it's like the vibe is my latest addiction is Yellowstone. So literally I've watched an episode of Yellowstone every night for the last 4 weeks. I'm somewhere in series 4. I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is my perfect companion to it, with a glass of wine in the other hand. It's something I really look forward to, and it improves your day. And okay, yeah, you don't want to kind of everything in slight moderation, but it's good.
We'll bring them out in kilos.
And we've got some brilliant stuff coming up. So we're launching this beautiful molten cookie dough, and that's coming out in May. And lots of great ideas. So it's in fact, the entire workforce of Spooners is with me in the room here today. So
and where do you
super
see
excited.
Where do you see Spooners in 5 years?
Yeah, well, you see, that's the kind of question that I don't look at it in that way. So I look at it, where do I see Spooners by the end of the year? Okay. And then I look at things because I think when you look, I'm not saying I'm right on this. I think it's going to be big. That's all I'm going to say. But I don't know for sure. I suppose think is more hope that it's going to be big. But the key thing is, what are we doing to make it big? And the key thing is getting the product right and getting a pipeline that people are excited about, and then getting the supermarkets on our side, and then getting great people like we've got in our team to basically get behind it and commit to it. And I always think that with decisions that you make in life, it doesn't matter whether they're personal decisions or business decisions or whatever, what makes a good decision is committing to a decision. It's the commitment that makes it good. You know, there are lots of ways of doing things. You can say, oh, well, I think I should do this, but it's the act of the commitment to this decision and the obsession to make it work and that actually will make it a successful decision. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, it's like with relationships. It's if you really commit to someone, then it's more likely to work. Whilst if you keep on saying, oh, you know, I'm going to go on a date with them and then, you know, go on a date with someone else and whatever.
Get in the doghouse.
Probably neither of them are going to work, are they?
Exactly.
Even though it's quite good fun.
Well, sometimes. Moving swiftly on.
Okay.
I'm joking. Many in the audience tonight might be founders, aspiring entrepreneurs. What's one piece of advice that you would give to them sat here this evening?
Well, the first thing to work out is that if you really want it, do you want a life of comfort, or do you want a life of adventure? And I personally prefer a life of adventure, and if it's comfortable, great. But I like a ride. And if you're tuned this way, and not everyone is, and it's basically, it's a life of adventure, but it's a life of uncertainty. And uncertainty is really tough. So, you know, it's not, I don't know why, I just, somehow I'm quite good at dealing with crap. And tough things, and I although I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve a bit, I do kind of take the knocks, and I think you've got to be quite good at that, because it's very easy to say, you know, the bar is so high for success that you've got to get everything right and be slightly paranoid about it and everything else, but and then the most that's the kind of, if you like, the mindset. But then in terms of when you do it, just focus on number one thing: get the product right, get a really good product, and keep on obsessing about how it can be ever so slightly better. And if you're into food, if you're in the food business, you know, as I said, someone said to me yesterday, I really liked it. He said, "Cool food isn't cheap. And cheap food isn't cool."
Yeah.
You know, you want to go for something that's cool and something that's different. When I say cool, something that's a little bit different, and it's a little bit better. It doesn't have to be much better than everything else. It's got to be a little bit better.
And when starting your brands, I know you have used some personal and external investment.
Yes.
What types of investors or funding sources would you recommend for founders? Would it be venture capitalists, angel investors, or bootstrapping?
Good question. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant at getting I mean, you know, if I think about another area of which I could have done better, it's probably on the investor front, getting the right investors at the right time. So I'm not an expert on this, but what I would try and do is, and I meet people. Funnily enough, I was just talking to you earlier. I met a younger crowd of entrepreneurs yesterday in the food business, and they've all got really cool businesses. There's one guy who's running a bakery in East London called Pophams. I don't know if you know Pophams. It's fantastic. I've never been there, but I want to go there now, having met this guy and seen his products. And various other people. And these guys are 20 years younger than me. Anyway, we formed, it's called a cabal. And a cabal is a group of people who meet up. We're going to meet up once a month and just talk shit, basically, but share each other's problems without me saying, Zoe, what you need to do is this.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say that. You've got to say, oh, well, I had an experience similar, and this guy was trying to shaft me, and this is what I did. And then, you learn from other people's stuff. So, going back to your question, get the product, be in the right mindset. Be the right mindset for entrepreneur. Are you really up for this? Do you have that appetite for uncertainty? Might be something to do with the time in life. I mean, I'm in my late 50s. In fact, to be honest, I'm almost 60. It's ridiculous. But I don't feel that way. But I think you can start businesses any time in your life. I had this ski instructor who was age 85, and I was skiing powder with him, and he was awesome. So I always think age should not be your thing. Whether you're young or old, it's kind of. But yeah, get the mindset, product, and then surround yourself with people who are going to kind of help lift the table. And I think that's really important.
Yeah,
so get the team.
You can't lift a table on your own, actually.
You can't lift the table on your own. You need a great team. I'm so lucky. I've had at Goo, Coconut Collab, and now Spoon has got a fantastic team. And that also makes it enjoyable, which is one of the reasons for getting up. Yeah.
So we're going to have a little bit of a quick fire question round now, and then over to you guys. So, Jim, favourite food of all time?
Oh, gosh. Next question, I'll come back to it.
Okay. If you weren't in food, what career would you have?
Oh, wow.
Next question.
No, what would I do? I have no idea, but I have been in shoes. I've been in magazines. I've been
on telly.
I've been on telly. I was offered a job as an oil trader once. I'd have quite enjoyed that, to be honest. I'm a trader. I like trading. I like a hustle. So it would have to be involved buying and selling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Biggest pet peeve in a business?
Biggest
pet peeve in a business.
What's that mean?
What's your biggest
annoyance? Everyone who works in my business is going to laugh what I'm about to say. It's doing 25 scenarios of whatever you're looking at. So running too many things rather than actually doing stuff.
I think that's a girl thing, because you've got a heavily female-based audience. I think if you have more men in the team, there's no crap. They're just so to the point. Whereas girls would be like, yeah, but if we did this, it might be like that. And then if we thought about this, I think that could be. We need more men in the business.
Yeah, quite possibly. I love going back earlier. Perry just presented me with one thing as a brand idea, and I always think that's good. Not too many alternatives. Just go for something.
Yeah, it's annoying when you go actually out for dinner and the menu is so long, and you're like, I'm now really confused what I want, and then your friend orders something else, and you've got FOMO, but you're like, if I hadn't seen that on the menu, sometimes it's just too long.
Yes.
If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, living, dead, not well, I don't know what else.
Yes.
Who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, actually, well, it would be my dad, because he died a few years ago now, and I'm not interested particularly in other entrepreneurs. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for people like Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos or whatever. But the issue with these people, typically they've got huge egos, and therefore they don't necessarily make great company. I mean, you might learn something from them. So I that's why I say I'd rather have dinner with my dad, who was also a good businessman, and we talked business a lot. And there was another guy I used to work with who's also unfortunately passed away, called Mike, Hodgson. He started the Collective Dairy. He was a lovely guy. I used to play tennis with him, and we used to have a lot of laughs. And he was a really good businessman as well. So those two, so Mike, in fact, they were both called, my dad was called Mike, and Mike, I would go and have dinner with them. Yeah.
Shout out to the Mikes. And if you could sum up success in one sentence, really hard question, I'm sorry, I know. What would the sentence be?
Oh God, you want me to make something that's meaningful and
Yes. That everyone walks out of here and goes, I'm going to start that thing I've been thinking of.
What do you think, Phoebe? Phoebe's my daughter, by the way. Having lovely kids, and seeing them kind of achieve and thrive and be happy. I think that. I mean, I know that's cheesy. But that's a real success, yeah.
Thank you so much, James, for having an amazing discussion.